I'm Deborah Binting, and I'm on the forum committee. And before I hand this over to Josh to introduce our speakers and our topic for today, I just want to give you a little preview on what's coming up. Next week we have a topic of suicide prevention. And then on October 22nd, 2 days after my birthday, the shopping days are reducing. Music therapy, which was my first choice for a career. I didn't end up going into that, but music can make such a difference in people's lives, and I hope it does on yours on a daily basis. And then on October 29th, we have our own Dr. T. So, here we go. Let's make a difference.
Let's get it. So today, as I announced earlier during the service, a really important conversation about school board elections, because even though for a long time we haven't really needed to care about school boards, but there's been some recent issues that have raised the consciousness level of needing to be involved in this really important thing regarding school boards. The lives of our students and staff in our schools are at stake. So this is very important. Before I introduce these two lovely people, I want to make a quick announcement for something that's coming up this Thursday. There is a school board forum, not for the forum here, but it's a forum that is going to be happening at First United Methodist Church just across the streets, where some of our District 11 candidates will be discussing things that they care about. I will be one of the moderators of this forum, along with a student from D11. And so please come to that. If you have any questions, look in one of your e-blasts recently. There's a link to ask questions. So come to that event on Thursday night from 6 to 8, because it's really important as we're located here in D11. Speaking of D11, Neighbors for Education have a couple of representatives here, Naomi and Charles, that will be leading a conversation today regarding D11 and other school districts and the importance of those things. So I'm going to pass these mic off and let y'all go from there.
Check. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting us here on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. I was able to listen to about the middle on of the sermon, and it was a very inspirational and beautiful sermon. And I just feel very blessed and honored to be here with you guys today. My name is Naomi Lopez. I am a speech language pathologist in District 11. And I am a parent of a student in District 11, and I am the president of Neighbors for Education. I also serve on other boards in the community for other organizations, including the Teachers Union. Go ahead, Charles.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Johnson, longtime Colorado Springs resident for 23 years, a longtime D11 student as well. Went to Palmer High School here locally downtown. I'm also involved with Neighbors for Education. I'm also the co-chair for D11. Being really involved with education and future generation, I think, is truly important. I think it starts with the younger people to be able to make sure that we lead the path forward for what's next.
Thank you, Charles. So I believe that possibly our past chair of Neighbors, Jennifer Williamson, who is one of the ministers at our neighboring church down here, has spoken with the congregation maybe a couple of years ago, and possibly also our past D11 chair, Rhonda Heschel, might have come to speak to you guys. I wanted to give you a little background information about what Neighbors for Education is and how we formed. I would say close to 3 years ago, at the last, about 3 years ago, I was involved as an educator in District 11. I was involved in the district's equity leadership team. Our superintendent at that time, Dr. Thomas, had brought with him the first ever equity department at the school district, and it's the first equity department that any school district in our region has had. And that is quite alarming, and it is quite sad that in most school districts around the nation, there is a department focused on ensuring that there are equitable outcomes for all students within that school district. So Dr. Thomas came here. He was hired by that previous school board to serve our community, and he did want to have a focus on equity. And then 2 years ago when we had that school board election, there were a slate of candidates who ran on anti-equity and anti-masking. It was during COVID, and got elected to our school board. And the first thing they did was decide to not fund the equity department. So they took those monies away, disbanded the equity department, and provided that monies for that director of that department to the communication department. So they gave him 2 admin positions in the communication department. At that time, some of us who served on that district equity leadership team, including one of the chairs, Michael Williams, who I believe spoke with you recently. He's the executive director of Citizens Project right now. He got a bunch of us together and had some meetings with some of the founders of Neighbors and said, they all decided, let's go ahead and organize as a grassroots organization and continue this work for equity within District 11. So I was asked to come along, and I believe Charles and his brother, who's back there, were some of the younger individuals that came along into the organization. So we founded 3 years ago, and what we started to do was to educate the community as to what was going on in District 11. And we would show up to school board meetings, we would ask questions, we would meet with the school board members, with the superintendent, we had an interim superintendent and then the new superintendent that we have, to try to advocate to ensure that we had equitable outcomes within our district. So that's a little history about Neighbors and how we formed. I was voted president of Neighbors for Education, oh my gosh, I don't know how long it's been. Maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, when the chair, Jen Williamson, stepped down. We have since expanded to have 2 other chapters. We have a chapter in District 49 and a chapter in District 20. And those chapters are joining in on the organization to come together, because there's power in numbers and influence, so that we can ensure that there's equitable outcomes throughout the region. Charles? So Charles is going to tell you our vision and mission and values. Is it up there? It would be. I guess not. Maybe it'll show up here. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just read off our vision, mission, and values that we have for Neighbors for Education. So our vision for Neighbors is that every student is valued and educators supported, thriving in public schools, which I think that's truly important, that we need to look at our educators and as well as our students to make sure that they're both being met with the needs that are there and accessible for them to be able to teach and thrive, for our educators and students to be able to succeed in the education background and platform. And our mission is to advocate for safe, inclusive learning environments that foster increasing students' achievement and community engagement. So I know that community engagement is a truly important piece. Like, community wouldn't be what it is without people supporting each other, no matter where our walk of life is and where we come from. And I think that we're in a really unique opportunity right now in our generation and time, that community is truly the best resource that we have right now to be able to bring people together and show that we can disagree and also have those values to be able to uphold each other and keep each other accountable for what we all believe in and what we want for our future society to look like. And our values that we hold for our NFE is integrity, equity, evidence-based, and nonpartisan. And I know nonpartisan is a really big thing that people are focusing on in this time and age, and not trying to be so as political when it comes to our education for our students and what that wants to look like, especially for teachers as well that are trying to teach a curriculum standard as the education's requirement.
Yeah, so that is from our website up there, and our website is neighborsfored.org. Later on, there is also some literature here that we had put together for educational purposes about all the school board seats that are open in District 11, District 20, and District 49, and our website is at the bottom of this. These documents are also on our website, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. So, Charles mentioned that, you know, we have seen throughout the nation a push that is very political in our public education systems, right? And this has been a plan that has been going on for decades. We see it now, people talking about it on the news, candidates around the nation talking about wanting to defund the Department of Education for the United States. And this has kind of been, Colorado Springs was kind of a trial ground, right? With some certain organizations trying to see if they could get school board candidates elected that would push this agenda of privatizing our public education. Excuse me. Doing the advocacy that we were doing and the research that we were doing as an organization, we found that there was this influence coming in at the last school board elections. So what we were left with was fighting back towards visceral hatred coming from the dais of some school board members that were elected towards our community and our students who were identified as queer, transgender. We had a school board director in District 11, Director Loma, who continuously verbally attacked community members who happened to be black men a couple of times when they spoke out against what harm that they felt that school board was doing to their community, and publicly, you know, called them barking chihuahuas and just disgusting stuff like that, stuff that is uncalled for. And also talking about attacking the teachers union, attacking teachers in general. These kinds of things in District 11 is something that we have been fighting against and standing up against for the past 3 years. In the past, it's been a while, but we have been really working to educate the community on candidates that are running in District 11 right now who are not running for a political agenda. They are running to bring sanity back to school boards, and so that they can actually govern for what's best for all students and not just whatever their political agenda might be. We're seeing that in District 20 as well, in District 49. I'm sure that if you guys have been abreast to the news in the past 3 years, you have seen many things that have come out in the news about some of these outrageous stunts and embarrassing things that happen at school board meetings. I wanted to say that Neighbors for Education is not me, Naomi Lopez, the president. Neighbors for Education is not Charles, one of our chairs in D11. Neighbors for Education is all of us, right? I'm a union member, I'm a teacher, and I realize that when we gather together in numbers, we have power and we have influence, like I've said before. Neighbors we are here to ensure that we speak up for those who are most vulnerable, who don't have a voice. And I've been very pleased to see the communities come and join us. We have a lot of support when we have policies that are coming up at any of our school districts that are anti-LGBTQ, and we really, really, really appreciate it. We would also like the community to come and speak up and speak out when other issues of inequities are being talked about at the school board elections. I want to bring up real quick, if you can put up that slide. On the November, I'm sorry, we are in October. September 6th board work session District 11 had. We are seeing that they are starting to talk, like Director Jorgensen, who was up for re-election, and the board president, Mel Packham, who is up for re-election, they're starting to talk about the equity audit that was done under the watch of Dr. Thomas. It was the American Institute of Research did an equity audit. You can find that information on our website as well. And they looked at all of the academic data and success scores between and within our schools in District 11, and they came up with these gaps. There were huge gaps, as we could imagine, in students that have had lower social economic impacts, English language learners, Black children, Hispanic children, special education children. There were some big gaps in there, and our duty as the equity leadership team was to look at that data, and we were trying to aggregate that and to provide suggestions to the school board as to how we can start to close those gaps. Then we were disbanded. So Neighbors for Education took that effort forward. Well, the school board members that have been in charge for the past 2 years, I would say the majority of them, not 2 of them. 2 of them have been pro-equity and trying to get the district to look at that equity audit that we paid for. Well, they were saying, no, we don't want to look at that. Well, lo and behold, this election season, Vice President Jorgensen and President Mel Packham have been talking about this. This was brought up. They're talking about achievement gaps in the district. And as you can see here, look at that, look at those numbers. The area in our district where the lowest achievement is in any area is our Southeast district. As we know, is the mostly populated district within our area in our city for people who don't speak English. Lower socioeconomic, it's our highest impact of Hispanic and Black neighbors live in that neighborhood, and we're seeing those gaps within District 11, okay? So I had just taken a snapshot of this when I rewatched the board work session, but I would encourage all of you, if you can go in person or online, just watch the work sessions. They talk about a lot of things that come up during the next board meeting, and you will find out some astonishing things that they are either trying to push or information like this. And then how can we get involved with this community to say, we need you guys to do something about this disparaging data. I guess they realize that if they don't want to address these equities based on race, based on economic impact, then their scores are not going to go up. So they're starting to talk about that again. I found that very interesting. So it appears to me, as a logical human being, that it was a political stunt to try to just get elected, to try to push privatization and more charter schools into our district, which gives them money, the charter schools, and it takes away money from our students that don't have a choice to go to a charter school, or they're going to their neighborhood school. And we're going to see this gap here in the Southeast grow if we continue to go down that route. Charles, do you want to say anything about that part? And then here in a second, we're going to take some questions from you guys.
Well, actually, I grew up here in the Southeast. I still reside there in the Southeast, actually. So seeing those numbers is honestly not a surprise to me. But honestly, like she was saying, I think it's important that we need to talk to our community members and get people engaged and let them know about these situations that are going on in our schools. Because I know a lot of people talk about how they have to work and how they can't attend parent-teacher conferences and they don't have time to be able to see what's going on inside their schools and what the teachers are teaching them. So I think it's important that as community members we find ways to get involved at these board education meetings when they're open to the public to comment, or even getting a part of different boards within inside the schools to be able to get involved so we can start fixing these gaps that we're seeing in these key areas that we know we want our city overall to thrive and not just key areas. I think that's truly important. And kind of for me in my role, being more of a younger person within this role of NFE, I think it's important that we really do take our younger generation and actually guide them through this and actually listen to them and see where they're struggling at and trying to meet them where they're at instead of trying to force and old school way of thinking towards them, because we're in a new age and time where we're adapting to technology and access, and I think we need to use that in the most appropriate way that we can without diminishing anything or keeping anybody backlogged from any resources. Yeah, and that's really the main thing, just really getting involved, like really talk to your kids and get involved, ask them questions about how they were doing in school, like how are their test scores, how do they feel about reading, math, science, like actually engage with your kids, because I know as a young person, even though we're always so rambunctious to go out and already get it done and think that we know everything, I think it's just the curiosity of us having the validation of knowing that we're doing it right. And I think as older parents, you guys going through the times that you have went through and being here now, I think should have the empathy of knowing that it's not necessarily us as younger people being rambunctious and ambitious to be able to get ahead of the curve, but it's just wanting to be on the right side of history and on the right track. And I think that's truly important. When we listen to the younger people, I think we'll find the common ground of what we took in for years on end to where we're seeing now within our school boards and education.
Thank you, Charles. And I have some great suggestions for any of you that want to get involved. I know that District 11 has a program called Grand Friends, and it's volunteers that go into the schools that have need for tutoring, for helping the teachers, for reading to students, whatever it is that they need. It's this whole program. I see someone smiling over there. I don't know if anyone here is involved with Grand Friends, you can, if you're interested in getting involved with the district in that way, you just go on the website and type in Grand Friends. I'm not sure where on the website it is, but there is an application process, and then they will assign you to a school. You also can get involved with Neighbors for Education. If you're interested in knowing more about what we're doing, please sign up for our newsletter. We just had one come out today, and it had information from all of our chapters. It had links to all the forums that are coming up for the school board elections. It's a wonderful, our secretary is a mother and her husband is a principal in D49, but she does a wonderful job on our newsletter. It comes out monthly, and sometimes we have a special edition that comes out. So if you're interested in signing up for that newsletter, I did bring my laptop, and we can just put in your email there. We do not have mailing newsletters, but we do have electronic newsletters. We also could use you to help us get out the word as to canvassing for, yeah. So we have these. I don't know if I gave you these to put up on the screen, but I did bring some hard copies here. And I believe, we have some literature there that I believe CSCA, the teachers union, a group of teachers got together and interviewed all the candidates. Only certain candidates wanted to be interviewed by us, and out of those people we did teachers endorsed 4 candidates. And so there is some literature that I saw back there on one of your community tables. So, but in District 11, these are all the candidates that are running, and they're where you can go and find out about their platforms. Since Neighbors for Education is nonpartisan, we do not endorse candidates, nor do we say these are the ones that we would vote for, right? So we put all of them there. However, we do support our teachers. So I'll just say that. We support our teachers, and we trust their decisions. At the bottom of this sheet, you will see in this red section, I'm not sure if we can scroll up on there, but it does say nonpartisan organizations that keep you informed, and they are Citizens Project, League of Women Voters, I'm sure you're familiar with them. And then other organizations in Colorado Springs that may be actively dismantling public education. And this is based on the research that we have done and seen what they are trying to do, the money that they're pouring in to try to make public education privatized, and they're listed there. So if you see any of those organizations behind any of the candidates, then that'll give you, on either side, that'll give you a good inclination as to where they stand. But I encourage you to take a look at their websites, if you're on Facebook, they have some Facebook pages, and they'll let you know about their platforms. And if you go on our website, these links are clickable. So you can just click on them and it'll take you right to any of those candidates' pages. So, do we have any questions? Yes.
If you have a question, please go to the mic over there where Josh is.
Okay.
Get you on TV and we'll be able to get your live stream things.
And we have the documents, the paper documents here in the front. We do have more District 11 documents, and we have a few for District 20 and District 49 up there.
So, I heard yesterday that at the most recent work session, there was a discussion of hiring people to teach who are not teachers and who are not certified to teach, and to pay them at a rate that outstrips regular teachers. Is that true? And if so, what's going on about that?
Well, I did not listen to that board work session. However, I did hear that through our union pulse, the teachers' union pulse. From what I've heard, they were discussing, so right now the district outsources special ed providers like speech pathologists, occupational therapists, nurses, through an agency that I actually used to work for, and that is a very common practice thing to do, where special service providers like myself are a little harder to find than teachers, so there are agencies that source out. I will assure you that those of us who are special service providers who work for that agency in particular that the district hired, we are certified both by the Colorado Department of Education and by our national associations in order to practice in public schools. From what I heard, they're talking about, well, maybe we can do that as well with teachers. You know, this agency can find teachers. I have never heard of an agency that does that. I would assume that if it's the same agency that they hired for the special service providers, that I know that that owner would make sure that if they are a special education teacher, that they do have the appropriate certifications. If it's anything outside of that, I don't know if it's just talk right now, they do a lot of that, but I would encourage you to say, I heard this, and we need to make sure that that is not the case. As you know, over COVID, there was a lot of, we lost a lot of educators, and I personally lost a friend of mine who passed away from COVID. So it was a very hard time for us, and there were many states that tried to come up with creative ways to staff our schools. One of them was using National Guard members to come in and teach, and you know, of course we don't want any of that. We want to make sure that we're not just having placeholders or babysitters who are responsible adults to teach our children, that they are certified teachers that are going through a process to get certified by the state, by everyone else. So I've heard that as well. I didn't hear any specific plans. I would encourage you, if you have a concern about that, write all the board members and say that you do not want that. And if they are thinking about that they need to provide how these teachers are certified.
For being activist. I hate to be discouraging, but I've lived here for a long time. And my daughter graduated from Palmer back in 2004, so it's a very long time. And I really don't see things improving from that time. I was actually the DAC chair under Superintendent Burnley, and we used to have a test in District 11 called the DALT, which was developed by District 11. And one of the things that it showed is that students in higher economic neighborhoods, like my daughter going to Steele North and Palmer, achieved higher scores from the spring to the fall because of the activities they did with their parents over the summer. Summer camps, travel to Europe, etc. Very, very discouraging. So we actually went to Dr. Burnley and suggested this was a civil rights issue because it was clear geographically in looking at the wealth of the neighborhoods. And Dr. Burnley, who I do have a great deal of respect for, said, oh my God, we can't do that. We'll bring in the civil rights people. This will just be a big mess. And I think maybe we made a mistake in terms of not doing that. At the same time, I was part of a group, as was my daughter, called Assets for Youth. And the purpose of this, it's a national program, was to try to develop strength for youth beyond just the school, but from their neighborhood. And one of the things I really encourage everybody to do is to learn the names of your kids who are in the neighborhood and talk to them and ask them how school is going, what they like, etc. To kind of acknowledge them, because I think that was really a very positive thing to do. But I am sort of discouraged about the way that things are going, because it is very much the same as when I was active and my daughter was in school, that your zip code determines the quality of your education, and that should absolutely not be the case. So maybe it is time to make it a civil rights issue and go to federal court. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. You now have red lipstick on here. Okay. Thank you for mentioning that. You know, it very much is a civil rights issue, right? How many decades has America been working to ensure that there are equal rights for all of our citizens? And time again, we have these cycles of people in power that come and try to dismantle any movement that's going on. And we're at the height of that right now, right? So it's no surprise that public education is getting the brunt of that visceral attack again. I believe that we never stop fighting. We have a lot more momentum behind us, but that's why it's very, very important, and why we were so shocked and so moved to action when people who actively ran on anti-equity measures for our schools, there was a department put in place that actually was given money to address these issues so that we can pour resources in. We could use scientific-based educational data practices to ensure that we provide the supports that are needed for these students where we see these big gaps. It's out there. But if we don't have a school board that is willing to pay attention to that and said, we need to shift some money to that because we care about all of our students, and we're not afraid of this boogeyman word of equity and equality, if we can get those candidates, which I assure you there are 4 or 5 running right now on for District 11. In District 20 and in District 49, I know we have candidates that they are not afraid of that and they want to focus on that. If we can get them elected, then that is the first place to start to take back our school districts, to ensure that all our students are not left behind. Any other questions?
I got into this isn't a question, this is a sermon. I got into education very late in my life, and history was kind of a passion of mine, so that was what I wanted to teach. But it became very clear to me once I got in 20 some odd years ago that there was a definite push and movement underway to privatize everything. And in my studies, what I've learned is that there's been a myth, a concerted, I won't call it a conspiracy, but a concerted effort to mythologize the American mindset that business and free market is the foundation of free politics, when in actuality it's the opposite. If we privatized everything, as you know from monopoly, it just all starts to concentrate in power, and you lose your democracies, you lose your equalities, you lose your equities. Public education is the last vestige, I believe, of democracy in the United States. And if we lose our public education, which there's a concerted effort to get rid of it, if we lose that, we've lost our democracy. And so I would encourage you to do anything you can to help make sure that we are not afraid of these boogeymen and boogie terms. One of the current school board members' aunt, when this person was running, I happened to know their family, and the aunt encouraged me to vote for her relative because the blacks were out to take over everything. And I turned to her and I said, well, it's about time. But anyway, I appreciate everything you've done and are doing. And I probably would not be able to teach in today's climate.
Well, thank you so much for your dedication to our community as a teacher. You said at Palmer, correct? Thank you so much. And I agree with you. When we first started doing this work, like I was just a speech pathologist, and I was doing good for my students and loving my job and taking care of my child as a single parent. And I said, oh, this isn't right, so let me get involved. And then when I started to see what was actually happening, that's what propelled me to say, oh, you best believe I am not going anywhere, and I'm here to fight. And if you're going to say something, you're going to answer to me and all my friends. But I did say, educators will save our democracy. Education and knowledge is power, right? And you're 100% correct. If we do not actively get involved as a community to save public education, then our nation is in great peril. Any other questions? Okay, if you do want to sign up for our newsletter, I will have my laptop over here, and then we can get you logged in there.
I just want to reiterate that everything that everyone has said, and thank Naomi and Charles for coming today as the council education rep for FCC. We appreciate you coming. I also want to give you one more opportunity that Naomi didn't mention because she has to be nonpartisan. But these are the candidates for D11 that she's speaking of, and yes, these are out here. I'll be here again next week with these. I've met all of these people and they're wonderful. I tell you this as a parent and an educator. In part, I don't work for D11 anymore because of their equity issues. And as a parent of a special education student who's not getting all of his special ed services right now, we really need this. So one way that you can personally support this effort, for the next 3 weeks, you can sign up to help with a phone bank or knocking doors for these 4 D11 board candidates. I've joined as a community member. I've joined the association for this effort, and it's been very rewarding. Amy, I forget your last name, has also joined us, but we need more folks. We only have a handful of days left to accomplish educating voters and gaining the votes for these people. Like she said, if we don't have a board interested in a priority list in order, beginning with equity, then we're not going to have anything. Our educators need to put on their oxygen mask first before they can take care of our children. And this is how we help them get their oxygen mask on. So if you're interested, I have to leave on a bus soon, but you can leave your contact information here and I can help pass it on to the Common Sense for D11 organization that is heading up this effort, and or help support you in how you can be involved. I hope I didn't take over.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for, I did walk with you a couple of days, so nice to see you again. All righty.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I mean, you talked about families being involved with education, how it's a system, and I think that the issues with, especially with the Southeast that you mentioned, are systemic and not just related to a school building or teachers. I do a lot of advocacy work, as some of you know, for transportation, bicycling, walking, pedestrian things. And I have created, based on some recent experiences, it's an equity quiz. And this quiz has only one question, and it's image-based. And I'll describe the images to you. There are 4 pictures, A, B, C, and D. Picture A is a sign you probably recognize, it says school zone. Speed limit, wind flashing 20 miles per hour. Picture B is a sign that says school zone. Speed limit, wind flashing 20 miles per hour. C is a sign that says school zone. Speed limit, wind flashing 20 miles per hour. These are all pictures I've taken in the Colorado Springs area. And sign D says school zone. Speed limit, wind flashing 35 miles per hour. Identify the sign that's posted in the Southeast. that's an indication of how we view that neighborhood as citizens of Colorado Springs. And I think we need to fix all of these different things, including the issues that you mentioned, but the overall issue of how we value children who live in different neighborhoods in the city.
Thank you for that. I also want to say I work at Midland Elementary. That's one of my schools. And guess what the school zone sign says outside of our school, just there on Bott Avenue and 21st Street? There is not one. So just so you know, that is an issue as well in District 11.
So I'm sorry, he empowered me. So a lot of my colleagues at the university tried to help Helen Hunt School, and we're at elementary school. First thing they noticed is there were no crosswalks at school. And two of our anthropology professors worked on that. I used to be the education librarian, so I will document any of these resources if you want to challenge me. But I think the Southeast has a real case to make. The Southeast Express, if you've read that, it's been documented by our county health department that this makes me cry, the life expectancy of people living in the Southeast is 16 years. It's not 2 years or 4, it's 16 years shorter than the rest of the city. 16 years shorter if you live in the Southeast. That's unbelievable. And about 4 years ago, the Colorado College students did a year-long study, and they found that the average temperature in the southeast part of Colorado Springs is 8 degrees higher than the rest of the city. They have way fewer trees. Lyda Hill paid for a tree canopy study. They have way fewer trees. They have way more major and minor arterials, often with speed limits not addressed. I mean, to me, it's an incredible equity issue, apart from the education issue that we all should be working on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We are working with our partners that also have focus on these other equity issues throughout the city. Of course, our focus is education, but we do have our partnerships and we support each other. So if there's ever something that comes up where we want to go speak at City Hall or at the County Commission, we can go and support our community partners. And I would like to speak with you, because I would like, or those that are interested in helping neighbors develop a plan so that we can address these few inequities that we identified with basic things like the speed limits outside of schools and supporting our communities that have these great inequities. So talk to me afterwards, please. Anything else? Okay, well, we'll be around off mic for any questions. And thank you all for listening to us.